Good morning and welcome to Bitcoin Thursdays with Dr. J. I'm Dr. J and I'm here at, 3:30 in the morning because I have a flight to catch today to Boston and I'm going to be in the plane at 10 o'clock. Won't be able to do the show. So I decided to record a little bit for you before I get on the plane. So a very Merry Bitcoin Christmas to you. You know, Christmas is a funny kind of time. Time slows down and the noise fades. Right now it's so quiet. And just for a moment, you're able to step back and start to see patterns. Well, that's what tonight is about. It's not about price or panic, Bitcoin goes up or down, but about perspective. So get your coffee, and I think I'm going to have to get some coffee soon and sit down and let me share a story with you. You know, once upon a time, a very not so long ago, really, it wasn't that long, there lived a small group of people who were called Bitcoiners. Now, these Bitcoiners, they weren't famous. They weren't invited to fancy parties or conferences. Heck, most of them didn't even agree with each other. They argued. But they did have one very dangerous trait they all shared. And that was they asked why. They asked questions like, why does money lose value every year? Why do these too big to fail banks fail and then get Christmas bonuses? And why does it feel like I'm on a little treadmill constantly, running in the same place, even though I work hard? So instead of trusting promises, these Bitcoiners, they trusted math and science and physics and energy. You know, I'm sitting here at my house being quiet because everybody else is sleeping. Here's a little confession. My first Bitcoin Christmas wasn't that magical, actually. It was pretty confusing. I remember checking the price like a nervous parent, you know, checking the kid in the crib. Every dip felt personal. Every headline felt like an accusation. Kind of like now, you know, what's happening right now. You know, but then something very strange happened. I found myself sleeping better. And that's when the code, the matrix-like code started to unfold for me. Because Bitcoin wasn't really just about getting rich. It was about being able to sleep well in a dishonest world, in a world where the kingdom just prints fiat money and pretends that there is value. See, Bitcoiners have been learning all these years. We're learning about keys and hash rates instead of castles and princesses. You know, we're learning about energy instead of entitlement. And we're learning about personal responsibility. Your keys, your Bitcoin, don't lose it, right? Instead of about getting permission from a bank. But anyway, coming back to the story, in this little magical kingdom of Bitcoiners, they were often mocked. It wasn't so magical. People would say to them, you can't eat Bitcoin. Or something like it's fake money. Or something even more obtuse like, hey, Bitcoin's going to zero. And then winter came. And when winter came, the banks froze. The credit markets trembled. And suddenly the Bitcoiners were not looking like the crazy people they were made out to be. They weren't kings or queens, but they were prepared. They were the preppers. They were the monetary preppers. In their kitchen, they had Bitcoin, like those dry stored foods. And on one cold Christmas Eve, as the printers were humming and the 38 trillion debt kept on going up and up and up, the Bitcoiners gathered, not around a fireplace, even though I have a little fireplace here, but around nodes and miners, creating heat, generating Bitcoin. And the children gathered and they asked, Dad, why aren't you scared? And I answered, and my friends answered, the Bitcoiners answered, because we have chosen truth over comfort. And the Bitcoiners lived happily ever after. That's my story. Now, let's look at what we have built. Let's have a look at our year in review. I may not have a chance to speak with you before Christmas, but you know, most revolutions, they don't start up looking like revolutions while they're happening. They just look like people quietly doing their work, doing what they do, while most of the others who are not doing any work are arguing on social media about one thing or another. But 2025 was not a year of hype for us. It was a year of construction. See, the Bitcoin Ben brand didn't just become a brand this year. It was already in place, but it really became a place. To me, that's how I felt. Bitcoin Ben clubs became a place where people learned about Bitcoin without being sold nonsense or a stock tip, where education came first. It was not speculation, where people talked about freedom and sovereignty, and our members came in, and freedom was something we practiced, not just a slogan. And, you know, it makes me smile sometimes because people come up to me, as you can imagine, and they go, so what exactly is Bitcoin Ben Crypto Club? And I say, well, how deep down the rabbit hole do you want to go? And they usually step back, like as if I've mentioned, do you know algebra or something like that? but slowly, you know, you zoom out and you let the code unfold and you start to see it. We have these beautiful independent clubs, and people come in and members have shared principles, and we know and understand and live freedom every day. It's a decentralized culture. Everyone's equal. None of this is controlled, or none of this has an agenda. It's just aligned. That's just how Bitcoin works, right? So our clubs work kind of the same way. And private key capital emerged this year. I remember about 7 months ago, I just joined, about 2 months in, and it was an early morning, kind of like this, like 3:30 in the morning. I was texting Ben, and private key capital emerged out of that conversation. He said, you know, we have to make our clubs more accessible to a broader audience, and we have to attract more investors and capital across a broader. We need a more professional name. Shouldn't just be Bitcoin Ben. And I did some research and I came up with private key. I remember texting him and saying, Ben, what do you think about private key? Like, you know, as private key, your coin, private key, public key. And he says, man, I love that name. And so it stuck. So here we are. We started creating private key capital. And you know, we started exploring what could we do this year with private key capital, private key clubs, private key resorts. But really what started to become was ideas that a Bitcoin native treasury company could be created. We could turn energy into hash rate. We could have mining operations. We could have credit operations in banking. I mean, these were just ideas at the time. And yet we quietly, diligently executed on making some of these ideas start to come true. And here we are. And it's almost like it happened to me. And at some point, every single Bitcoiner remembers this moment when you stop seeing Bitcoin as an asset. You start to see Bitcoin as an infrastructure. You start to see Bitcoin as energy. You start to see Bitcoin as a timeline, a blockchain of truth timelines. You start to see Bitcoin as trust. When you pull back enough, the whole system just lights up. It's sort of like this beautiful Christmas tree. Emma's been putting up these nice little trinkets on the tree. So it just lights up and you suddenly realize, I get it. See, this Bitcoin thing, it replaces stuff. It replaces really kind of important stuff. Stuff like banks and Federal Reserves and those little things like that. So that's why it matters, and I think every one of us has that aha moment when we start to understand that Bitcoin is this layers of onion rings and onions, and you peel them off and more starts to emerge. So it's really important. And there's a part of education, right? It's a sharing, it's a shared knowledge. We talk about, Bitcoin Thursdays. Ben has been on the road. Every day he gets up, no matter where he is on this planet Earth, he gets on that microphone and he shares his ideas. His Bitcoin Ben show is just not just a podcast. It's about not just learning about Bitcoin. I mean, I love these shows that he does because Bitcoin, he talks about faith and Bitcoin. He talks about the physics of Bitcoin. He talks about the history of Bitcoin and beyond, and our own history. He's such a historian. I just love his stories about, everything from 1776 and before that and after that. So, I just think that his shows are not just reacting to the world, it's explaining the world in a way only Ben can. And that matters. And why does that matter? And why are these shows an important part of the Bitcoin Ben clubs and private key? It's important and it matters because he who controls the narrative also controls the future. See, Bitcoin Ben realized this a long time ago. He's been shaping and discussing ideas and exposing truths for a very long time. And when we share these truths, as we are doing now, it brings our Bitcoiners together. It builds a stronger community, and it gives us the power that comes from truth. All right. So on this very merry Bitcoin Christmas show, I decided last night, before I went to sleep, I've slept for about 2.5 hours, that I was going to do a top 10 countdown. And so here we go. Number 10. And these are some of my predictions for 2026, how the world is shaping up, what my worldview is, and don't have to agree with everything, but here it goes. Number 10 is the elf economy will start to boom. And who are the elves? I think Jack Mallers and the PayPal guy, those are the head elves. They're building things on the Lightning Network. It's exploding. Lightning Network is perfect. It's going to explode because it works. I just heard Sherpa was telling me that Steak and Shake is going to actually give you the option, if you're an employee, to get your salary in Bitcoin. And that's pretty darn exciting because once you can get Bitcoin as salary and then you start to move transactions, millions and millions of transactions per second on the Lightning Network, adoption starts to happen. So I think these elves, Jack Mallers as the head elf, they don't talk too much, although he does. They build a lot, and I think Lightning is going to start to really explode. That's a good thing. At number 9, Grinch is going to tighten credit. And who's the Grinch? I think JP Morgan's Jamie Dimon is a Grinch, and so are his cohorts in the other big banks. And I think in 2026, the fiat money lending is going to tighten. Compliance is going to grow teeth, and suddenly Bitcoin-backed credit won't sound such crazy anymore. It's actually going to sound like the most reasonable thing there is. Funny how that works, right? So I do think that next year, with all this money printing, you think there'll be a lot of liquidity, and I think the reverse. I think that there's going to be some credit tightening going on. At number 8 is energy becomes the new gold. Bitcoin Ben often talks about, Bitcoin being liquid gold and all of that good stuff. I think energy becomes the new gold. Mining becomes the grid stability because, we sort of have all this energy in the grid and it just flows and we can't store it and energy keeps being produced. And if you don't use it, you lose it. It's an absurd system. The amount of energy that we lose from the grid every single second, and Bitcoin can be that sponge that soaks it up and converts that energy into bits and a Bitcoin, a construct, a mathematical construct that can be stored forever, that can be moved around the world in seconds, that grows in monetary value, that no flood can destroy. Now think about it. When I just take energy and I convert a watt back into a watt in a battery, billions of dollars have been invested into battery technology. But all you're doing is taking a watt and putting it into another device that just stores that watt for a little bit of time. You can't move that battery around like you can move Bitcoin. It depreciates in value because it's an asset that depreciates, and it stores energy temporarily. And people think it's the coolest thing in the world to have battery. Well, convert that watt into a bit. Now you got a Bitcoin. You converted that energy into a structure that you can move around and build a monetary system on. So why wouldn't you make energy the new gold by transforming these molecules into bits and then creating a monetary structure around it? I think also rural monetization is going to become a thing in 2026 because there's so many farms and so much space. And I think a distributed energy development, 5 megawatts here, 10 megawatts there, is going to start to take shape. And we're going to be driving that initiative. Rural monetization, rural renaissance, and there's a bill in Florida with Senator Albritton around rural renaissance that I think is going to start to take shape. And I think industrial financing of these micro energy cells, the privatization of energy is going to become a really big thing. Energy will stop being wasted. It's going to be sucked up by Bitcoin, and that value of that energy is going to be sort of put in this box and moved around, right? And at number 7 is, drumroll, the ghost of fiat past. See, our government and other governments in 2026 will really have to revisit what a reserve is, or what settlement risk is, or what credibility even means. That the almighty dollar or the T-bill or the T-bond actually means something. What does it mean to have reserves unless you have Bitcoin in it? What does it mean? What does that piece of paper mean? What is a settlement? What is a counterparty where you just say, hey, I'm just the government, so I'm okay. I don't have counterparty risk. Bullshit. Your credit rating is going down every day. So they're going to have to revisit all that, not to save you, but to save themselves. The big banks, which are really the proxy of the big government, they got to save themselves. At number 6 is the naughty list. And the naughty list is the shit coins. I think many of them are going to disappear. I think we're starting to see the separation of signal and noise. Bitcoin is the signal. Everything else is sort of the noise, barring a few coins that are going to be used for creating smart contracts and those sort of things. I think utility wins. I think scarcity wins. I think truth wins. Distributed architecture wins. So I think Bitcoin will continue to gain in dominance in 2026. At number 5 is what I called Santa Sailor. I think Michael Saylor is kind of like Santa Claus. He has a little white beard when he doesn't shave. He's got that little twinkle in his eye. Santa doesn't ask you to believe. He just delivers. Ho, ho, huddle. right? The seller isn't selling anything. He's got enough cash to last him a lifetime, to pay out dividends and remove all the fear, uncertainty, and doubt. I think strategy is going to keep doing great. I think he's the Santa of our Bitcoin world, and I like him. I like him. At number 4 is retail products start to grow. I think self-custody becomes normal. Cold storage becomes cool again. I think credit unions like ours, which allow effectively self-custody, you have your own keys, very different from traditional banks where the bank controls your money. This becomes more like a storage facility, right? Where you can store your stuff and you can hold the keys to your storage facility locker. So I think credit unions and that new architecture where you can custody your Bitcoin, but you can get yield for it, which you don't get in your Exodus wallet. You can get downside risk protection with puts and calls and with options built in, and somebody's managing that for you so that you have downside risk protection on your asset. I think you're going to get credit. So if you put a Bitcoin, you can get a credit card, which you can go spend fiat money anywhere you want. So you're unleashing the potential energy of Bitcoin. So I think retail is going to grow up, and retail banking and credit unions will be really accelerating into 2026. And I think this whole idea of number 3 is huge. It's huge. It's banking without banks. I think our credit unions, co-ops, private associations, they're going to be the innovators. They're going to be creating new products that eventually the big banks will take on. But this is our year because Bitcoin's not going to kill banks. It's just going to force them to behave in a certain way. And I think that's what's starting to happen. At number 2 is hash rate is geopolitics. So what do I mean by that? There was a time when aircraft carriers sailing the 7 seas were really powerful, and they still are. It was a bit of sovereign American soil in 30-foot waves in some obscure part of the world, and that whole geopolitical structure of that part of the world would start to shape and bend to the needs and the movements of the aircraft carrier. That's what geopolitics was. Well, hash rate is going to become the geopolitics in 2026. We have still 4 more years of pretty solid mining to be done, a lot of Bitcoin to be mined. I think mining becomes a strategic infrastructure, and countries with cheap energy will win. I think it's really important that you start to understand that energy is going to be the weapon that countries will yield to make Bitcoin, and therefore stabilize their treasuries and create credit and come into the new world. And finally, at the number 1 spot, my prediction is that Bitcoin will stop explaining itself. That's going to be the biggest shift in 2026. Bitcoin no longer cares whether you understand it. It just works. Just like the cell phone of mine over here. You don't know how the touchtone screen works, and you don't know what's inside, and you have no idea what chips are used. But you use it and it works. Same thing with Bitcoin. It just doesn't care anymore. We have done enough podcasts. We have done enough shows. President Trump has posted enough stuff about Bitcoin, the best 10 minutes of Bitcoin explanation. Bitcoin doesn't care if you understand it anymore. It just works. It's going to be adopted, whether you like it or not. That's so there you go. So let me just close. I have to take a shower and get ready. It's almost 3:50 in the morning. I have to leave by 4, so I got to close out my show here. So let me close out. As CEO, my job is not to predict the future necessarily. It is to build something that'll survive in spite of the future. And private key is what we are designing and building and constructing very carefully, very thoughtfully, as a Bitcoin standard in an energy constrained world, in a post-fiat reality. the things that we are building today with private key capital is really important. It's being built to survive that. No, it's not going to be easy. We're going to do a thoughtful rebranding, not just cosmetic makeover of putting a new banner on our clubs. There's going to be a very thoughtful rebranding of Bitcoin Ben Crypto Clubs into private key clubs, private key resorts, private key credit unions, private key capital, which is the capital arm of the company. So there's going to be a clear separation of treasury and mining and energy and digital credit. And so this is an architecture that we are building. We're going to be very thoughtful about it. We're going to be very diligent about it. And there'll be capital structures that'll be aligned to this architecture, right? Because we're going to get capital to build the Bitcoin economy from individuals, high net worth, our members, from hedge funds, from private equity, from family offices. And we have to be able to absorb large amounts of capital. We have to be able to provide complete transparency to how we are allocating those funds into our vision of what the Bitcoin world looks like. It has to be aligned with truth. And so our capital stack, our capital structure is going to be redefined. Most importantly, in 2026, it's certainly my plan and vision to hire some exceptional people, people who are knowledgeable and freedom-oriented, and people who understand treasury, people who understand call and put options and straddles and collars, people who understand energy credits and production of energy in various forms and renewables and, mining. We need to hire people who understand banking, digital credit, digital capital. So there's a lot of exceptional people that we're going to start to bring into the team. And my directive as CEO will be to really look at timing over ego. We all want everything done yesterday, and we all want by Q2, we're going to finish this. No, I don't want to put any artificial deadlines, no empty promises. I just want a commitment that we will build this. We're building something very powerful, but we're going to build it thoughtfully, diligently, correctly, but relentlessly. So there's some very big things that are going to happen in 2026 for the Bitcoin Ben clubs transforming to private key clubs, and all of the re-architecture of the separation of the functions, the capital stack, the structure, the architecture, which will allow us to withstand any sort of blows that come, in the following years. So, that's a lot to do. That's a lot of mouthful of words there, but these are all being enacted. Nathan has already started on that process of rebranding with his team. You're gonna get a little letter from me. It'll probably be in your email box, which kind of outlines the summary of our accomplishments and our goals and vision for the next year. Look forward to getting your feedback. Feel free to text me anytime, and certainly call the number on the screen and get participating in the programs. But tonight, this morning, it's almost 4 o'clock, as we exhale into the end of the year. Remember, you just didn't buy Bitcoin. Whenever you did, you chose honesty, because at some point, each one of you will zoom out far enough to see a pattern that is beautiful, that this Bitcoin is here to stay. It's accelerating. We're going to the acceleration phase of the curve. I think 2026 is going to be a wonderful year for us when Bitcoiners live, how do they say that in the fairy tale? Happily ever after. Merry Christmas, my friends. Happy New Year, in case I don't get to doing another show before the end of the year. Have a blessed, blessed end of the year. Give your friends and family a tighter hug. It's a very special time of the year. I'm just so excited to be part of this movement, to have this opportunity to have each one of you in my life, my family's life. We are dedicated to the cause here that we are building together, and let's do it. So thank you again for your time. Sorry, I'm a little short today because I got to run. I have to run over to Boston. I'll be in the plane at 10 a.m. in the morning. So that's why I'm recording this right now. And we have a New Year's party, Christmas party in Leominster, our Boston office, with a couple of potential senators coming there. And Ben's going to be there. So I'm excited to see him. God bless you, and God bless America. Merry Christmas. Love you guys.